Hello everybody, this is Fernando for Godzilla Movie News. For this video, I'd like to talk about again some of the past failed Godzilla projects, the what could have beens that I've done in some of my past videos. It's a pretty popular subject, so I thought I would present some more failed projects to let everybody know and give everybody a chance to discuss on these projects as well. It's been pretty slow right now when it comes to the news related to the newest Godzilla movie, so that's one of the reasons why I'm also doing this video. Now normally I would present one failed project per video, as I've done in my past ones. The problem though is these projects that I'm talking about have such little material on them. I have to jumble them together. I think it's more convenient this way too, because it allows me to present several videos at the same time. That way yourselves as users and viewers do not have to click around in other videos to hear the information. So I brought together the 3 favorite ones that I've chronicled on my website, which as always you can see the link on the bottom of my description here, and I've included the website that I found that showcases these failed projects in one place. So they include more failed projects that I'll talk about in future videos, but if you wanted to take a look and see those projects themselves, no problem, you'll see the website at the bottom of my description again. So for starters, I'll talk about the craziest one that was out there. This was something that I still feel had the smallest chance of ever being produced, and this was going to be actually a Batman vs. Godzilla film. That is correct, you heard right, it was going to be the Dark Knight fighting against Godzilla himself. And the information related to this is pretty scarce, because the only thing that was ever done was a draft commissioned by Toho Studios. A draft is not a script itself. A draft is more like a bunch of ideas stapled together, usually around 40, 50, 60 pages or long. They don't have any kind of dialogue in them. Instead, it's the writer presenting scene by scene what's going to happen, kind of like a novel of sorts, a very early novel. And that's what this draft was going to be. It was commissioned back in November 1965, and it was going to feature the Dark Knight fighting against Godzilla. There were going to be sub-characters as well, including Robin, Commissioner Gordon, the Batmobile and Batcycle were going to be in the movie as well. And it looks like the villain of sorts was actually going to be a machine, a weather-controlling device that apparently was going to do something in terms of threatening the world's weather. So the idea was presented by Toho, but as the information states, it was never made known to DC Comics, so I don't know if DC ever heard about this, and if they did, if they just flat out rejected it, or were trying to do other stuff in terms of getting it approved. But Toho, the farthest they got on this idea was the draft. And again, I think this is the craziest one of all, because how do you do something like this? How do you have Batman fighting against a 300-foot tall monster and still make it seem, I guess, real, or as real as movies come along? I mean, literally, Godzilla would just use his fire breath or stomp on Batman, and that's it. That's the entire movie itself. But apparently, Toho saw a chance, because The Dark Knight at the time was enjoying a resounding success when it came to the comics. This was also on the eve of the Adam West show. It was going to debut about a year later. So Batman Mania was soon going to start, and no doubt Toho Studios wanted to take advantage of it. Again, I'm glad this never got past the draft stage, because it would have been so crazy to see something like this. I imagine too, the Batman at the time in the comics was very campy, which is why the TV show was as it was. So no doubt it would have featured Batman fighting against goons and still using the corny lines and so forth, and it just would have been a bad idea all around. So I'm glad this was never done in any part. Now the second idea that was out there that Toho decided to make was more of a supernatural theme, and this was Godzilla fighting against the devil. And this was because at the time, 1978, movies were enjoying a huge success on the supernatural side. Movies like The Omen and The Exorcist were just really raking in the big bucks, and this was something, of course, that Toho did not let go by without noticing. They wanted to make certain that they could incorporate something like this within their Godzilla movie. And so they commissioned, I guess, something. It doesn't state whether it was a draft or a script or something along those lines, but the idea would have involved Godzilla first fighting against a bunch of of evils usually found within some of the passages in the Bible, such as fighting against giant spiders, giant fish, a giant rat. No word though if it was going to involve any other form of plagues or anything like that usually found within the Bible. And it finally would have ended with Godzilla fighting the devil himself. This was apparently going to be a Toho American studio production, kind of much like the 1998 film. It doesn't say who this American studio was that was going to collaborate on this, but apparently there was going to be something along those lines, with a budget of about $4 million, which, considering the year 1978, would have been a good-sized budget, which is surprising again because Toho Studios is usually pretty cheap when it comes to their movies. But here they were, I guess, sure enough that this was going to be a success, that they were going to allocate this amount of funds. But the project never went beyond that stage, I guess beyond the proposal stage, and it was never made. I think also what was strange about this was the idea of the devil is more on a Western American type of ideology. What I mean is that here in Central America and West America, it's more associated with God versus the devil. But in other parts of the world, it's more good versus evil. In those parts of the world, it's more associated with the good of evil being inside the person as opposed to a supernatural force, such as God or the devil, influencing people. So this was, again, I wonder how this would have played in most other parts of the world where Godzilla enjoys further, huge success, because this would have been a theme that's not pretty popular in those parts of the world. So now the third project I wanted to talk about, I thought would have been a great idea, and this was something that I wish would have been made, and this was actually the Godzilla versus Ghost Godzilla concept. What happened was the proposal would have again involved the supernatural theme, but it would involve the original Godzilla from the 1954 film. Apparently, that Godzilla would have been a restless spirit of sorts, and it would have risen up from the grave in order to try to destroy Japan and a lot of the other cities around it again. And the newer Godzilla, the modern-day Godzilla, would have battled against this Ghost Godzilla. Who knows that if it was trying to do it to save the world, or if it was trying to do it to still declare himself king. But in any case, it would have involved a battle against the new Godzilla against the older Godzilla. And again, this concept I would have really loved, because A, here we would have had two pretty evenly matched monsters fighting against each other, and then B, it would have evolved sort of a father versus son type of concept, because the original Godzilla, of course, is the original Godzilla. The newer Godzilla is seen more as, I guess, the next generation of sorts, and it would have been interesting to see how that would have played out. No doubt, too, the Ghost Godzilla would have used a bunch of supernatural powers commonly associated with ghosts in movies, such as telekinesis, moving things around, being able to phase in and phase out of objects, like in this case probably Ghost Godzilla running through buildings as the newer Godzilla is chasing him, and also being able to instantaneously appear and disappear in other places, as ghosts are usually shown in movies to do. So again, I thought this concept would have really worked. The theme behind it of the newer Godzilla fighting against the older Godzilla would have definitely resonated, and unfortunately it was never made. So with the farthest we got was just the idea. Who knows though, in the future, if this is going to be incorporated in anything else, it would have been interesting to see something like this, I guess, again in films, but as it is, it's just one of those what could have been. So in any case, that's my latest video here. Again, I'll include all the links available to these projects underneath my description, and as always, the link to my Godzilla website on my description as well. Thanks everybody.